In 1962, a 24-year-old track runner from Oregon named Phil Knight boarded a plane to Japan with a suitcase and a dream that made no sense to anyone but him. Phil had just finished business school at Stanford, where he wrote a paper arguing that Japanese-made running shoes could challenge Germany's Adidas, the global sportswear giant. It was a bold claim. Japan, only 2 decades out from World War II, was still rebuilding. And Phil? He was just a skinny kid with no company, no office, and no employees. Only an idea. Still, he was obsessed with it. He'd travel alone through Tokyo, wander through unfamiliar streets, and somehow managed to get a meeting with executives at a small Japanese shoe company called Onitsuka Tiger. With nothing more than confidence and a clean suit, he pitched himself as the U.S. distributor for their shoes, even though no such company existed. To his amazement, they agreed. He left the meeting with a deal to import Tiger running shoes to the U.S. and sell them under a name he made up on the spot, Blue Ribbon Sports. His first shipment cost $50. He sent it to his parents' house. Phil didn't have a store. He didn't even have a team. But he had a former coach, Bill Bowerman, a brilliant and eccentric track trainer at the University of Oregon. Bowerman had long been obsessed with making better, lighter shoes for his runners. When Phil showed him the Japanese sneakers, Bowerman didn't just approve. He asked to join as a partner. They started selling shoes out of the trunk of Phil's car at track meets. Weekends, rain or shine, he would pull up, pop the trunk, and pitch the product to athletes and coaches. Slowly it worked. Word spread. Athletes noticed the quality, and sales trickled in. But there was no glamour, no fame, no certainty of success. Just long hours, side jobs to stay afloat, and constant anxiety that the dream would collapse. Phil was not a natural salesman. He was shy, analytical, often awkward. But what mattered was belief. He believed in the shoes. He believed in his mission. And that belief kept him moving forward. It was just the beginning. By the early 1970s, Phil Knight's scrappy startup, Blue Ribbon Sports, was finally gaining momentum. Sales of the Japanese-made Onitsuka Tiger shoes were rising across the West Coast. Track coaches, college runners, and even Olympians were starting to notice the sleek design and lighter build of the imported footwear. Phil had built a team, passionate misfits who believed in the mission. They weren't corporate. They were gritty, underpaid, and often working out of car trunks or makeshift warehouses. They believed they were building something real, something that could shake up the world of athletics. But then came the shock. In 1971, Phil discovered something unthinkable. Onitsuka Tiger was secretly looking for a new U.S. distributor, cutting Blue Ribbon out of its own business. After years of selling their shoes, growing their brand in America, and building customer trust, Phil was about to be discarded. He was furious and heartbroken, but that betrayal lit a fire. If Onitsuka was walking away, he'd do the unthinkable, create his own shoe line from scratch. Phil and his team scrambled. They didn't have factories. They didn't have designers. They didn't even have a name. That's when a young employee, Jeff Johnson, a running enthusiast obsessed with branding and psychology, called Phil in the middle of the night. "I have a name," he said. Nike. It was the name of the Greek goddess of victory. Short, bold, and easy to say. Phil didn't love it, but they had boxes to print. So he said yes. Then came the logo. They paid a graphic design student named Carolyn Davidson just $35 to create a logo. She came up with a now iconic swoosh, a simple checkmark-style stroke meant to suggest motion and speed. Nobody was thrilled with it at the time. Today, it's one of the most recognizable symbols on Earth. With the brand born, the team rushed to get their first shoe out before Onitsuka could crush them. That shoe was the Nike Cortez, an evolution of a popular Tiger model, with improvements from Coach Bill Bowerman. including better cushioning and durability. The Nike Cortez launched in 1972, just in time for the U.S. Olympic trials. The timing was perfect. American athletes wore them. Spectators saw them. Orders poured in. And so, the new brand, rushed, desperate, and born out of betrayal, exploded onto the scene. Phil Knight had taken a massive gamble. He went from middleman to manufacturer, from a distributor to a brand owner. If the shoes failed, the company was done. But they didn't fail. Nike had arrived. By 1973, Nike was alive, but just barely. The company had cut ties with Onitsuka and launched its own line of shoes, but building a brand from the ground up was brutal. The early factories were inconsistent. Inventory was tight. Every month, Phil Knight and his team scrambled to meet demand, pay debts, and survive. And then came a stroke of genius from an unlikely place. Bill Bowerman, Phil's old track coach and co-founder, wasn't just an advisor. He was Nike's mad scientist. He was obsessed with making shoes lighter and faster. One morning, while watching his wife make waffles in the kitchen, he had a wild idea. What if he poured rubber into the waffle iron? The result? A lightweight, grippy sole with a revolutionary tread pattern. It was unlike anything runners had seen. They called it the Waffle Trainer, and it was a game changer, literally. The shoe launched in 1974 and became a phenomenon among competitive runners. For the first time, athletes had a shoe that was fast, light, and functional, engineered by someone who understood what their feet went through on the track. Sales surged. Nike finally had a true edge. But while innovation pushed the company forward, trouble was never far behind. In 1975, Onitsuka filed a lawsuit, accusing Blue Ribbon of breach of contract. Phil fought back with a countersuit, claiming Onitsuka had violated their agreement first. The legal battle dragged on for years, draining energy and money, but Nike refused to back down. In 1977, a U.S. court ruled in Nike's favor. The underdog had won. By the late 1970s, Nike wasn't just selling shoes, it was reshaping sports culture. The company moved beyond track and into basketball, tennis, and football. Its grassroots, athlete-focused marketing connected with young players who saw Nike not as a corporate giant, but as a rebellious innovator. Phil Knight insisted that real athletes, not celebrities, were the shoes. The brand's image became tied to effort, sweat, and authenticity. The numbers told the story. In just 5 years, Nike sales rocketed from a few million to over $100 million. A tiny startup born out of a trunk, a betrayal, and a waffle iron was becoming the most exciting brand in American sportswear. But the competition was waking up. Adidas and Puma, European titans, began to notice. And on the horizon was another massive challenge, going public. It would test Phil Knight's leadership, put his company on Wall Street, and risk everything they'd built. Nike had proven it could run. Now it had to learn how to fly. By the early 1980s, Nike was flying high. The company had gone public in 1980, raising millions and turning Phil Knight into a millionaire almost overnight. The little shoe company born in a garage now had massive warehouses, international supply chains, and thousands of employees. But success brought new challenges. Competitors like Adidas and Reebok were regaining ground. Reebok, in particular, had exploded in popularity thanks to the aerobics craze. For the first time in years, Nike wasn't the fastest-growing sports brand. Phil Knight knew Nike needed a bold move. Something bigger than shoes. Something cultural. In 1984, Nike executives took a wild gamble. They signed a 21-year-old rookie from North Carolina who hadn't played a single game in the NBA yet. His name was Michael Jordan. At the time, the move was controversial, even inside Nike. Jordan wanted to sign with Adidas. Nike was offering him his own signature shoe line, something almost unheard of for a rookie. They offered $500,000 a year for 5 years, a figure that stunned the sports world. It worked. Nike launched the Air Jordan 1 in 1985, and everything changed. The shoes were bold, rebellious, and banned by the NBA for violating uniform rules, a ban Nike cleverly turned into marketing gold. They ran ads that said, "The NBA threw them out of the game. Fortunately, the NBA can't stop you from wearing them." Sales expectations were $3 million in the first year. They hit $126 million. Jordan didn't just sell shoes. He redefined what a sports brand could be. Nike was no longer just about function. It was about identity, confidence, and swagger. This partnership sparked a movement. Nike began focusing on athlete-driven storytelling, making stars like Bo Jackson, Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, and LeBron James part of its brand DNA. And in 1988, Nike released the 3 words that would become legendary. Just do it. Simple, bold, timeless. It captured everything Nike stood for: grit, courage, action. That campaign took Nike from a top U.S. brand to a global icon. Epilogue: from trunk to titan. From selling shoes out of a car to dominating sports culture, Nike's rise is one of the most remarkable success stories in American business history. Phil Knight once called the journey a running battle. It was filled with failures, lawsuits, debt, betrayal, innovation, and enormous risk. But behind every move was a belief that greatness isn't born, it's built. Nike didn't just build shoes. It built a brand that told athletes of every kind that they could go farther, faster, harder, that they didn't have to wait to be chosen. They could just do it.
Thank you for watching, and if you found this story as intriguing as we did, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends.